So earlier I made a video on how to use a jig to make the St. Charles Medical Center pattern for their face mask during this quarantine time. And the jig had a lot of questions on how to make it, and so I decided to go ahead and do a video on how to make a jig. To get here, the very first pattern I made, several days ago, I used this to figure out where the fold lines should be, and I had to iron out and was doing the whole process, and it was very time consuming. And then if you wash it once, you can barely tell that it was ironed at all, depending on the type of fabric. And that was tedious, and it just seemed like a waste of time. So I went from this to figuring out how to make it faster, to be more efficient. And so then I created this jig using some plastic from one of our companies that we used to make products 20 years ago. And that really increased my speed. And I wondered if other people might want to do something similar, and so what else could we use around the house? Cereal boxes or something that people would have around the house that they can make a comparable product to help other people as well, because even if we speed me up with how many masks are needed, I can't produce enough. So real quickly, how to use it. I already pre-sewed these ones according to the directions from St. Charles, and just do the folding and then you just sew down the edges, and then that gets you your pleated piece of fabric. You sew it while it's still on there, and it just gets you a good quality, consistent material. And so I'll show you how to do that. I pre-cut the things. I went ahead and I tried it earlier with this one. It ended up being too small because the original one puts it at 3.5 inches, which is just a tiny bit over what they spec'd out. But when I took off an additional 1/16 of an, or added a 1/16 of an inch to this, it made it far too small, and it was under 3 inches. And so we're going back to the original dimensions of what worked earlier. That gets just a tiny bit big, but I think it's better a little bit too big than a lot too small. But you can fine tune and play with the stuff. So I'm not going to show you how to cut. You know how to cut rectangles. I'll include the dimensions in the description on how what dimensions to use. So I have them already cut out. We have 1 3/8, 2 1/8, and 2 7/8. And I'll show briefly how I found works best. Get those three next to each other, so we're going to waste less tape. I use duct tape because it's a little more durable than like your standard packing tape. And I happen to have it at the house. Right now we want to minimize going to the store, so use what you have, hence the cereal box. Most households have some version of a cereal box. And the more precise you are in your building of your jig, the more precise your pattern will be, and so you can speed up your process later in the building, but take your time on your jig to get it accurate. Also, one of my early cereal box ones, I tried doing it without cutting into all 7 pieces. I tried doing combining these 3 pieces, and so then just cutting these additional ones, and that ended up not working as well. I didn't like the way it folded, so stick with cutting out all 7 pieces for this. So just as a guideline so you can see what's going on here, we have our middle piece, and then we're going to go with our piece A. So I lay it out here right next to that, put those 2 ends together, and then tape it. And then I find it's easier if I have something to kind of level it out a little bit. So, and we're going to do section C. So the A was 1 3/8, C is 2 1/8, and then E is going to be 2 7/8. So, and again, trying to get everything butted up nicely and get your precision down here now will save you from having poorly built product later. And I then will do a piece of tape here on the outside so it will lay flat. It won't come loose and won't have sticky stuff in the way. So, and then we're going to trim off these extra pieces because otherwise it's going to get in the way while you're sewing. It's been so cool to see how people have come together through all of this. A few days ago I posted some photos of my original masks, and a friend reached out that I hadn't seen in decades, and I knew her from when I was in elementary school, and she offered a bunch of fabric from an air filter from a vacuum company, and her boss got in touch with me, and then I put them in touch with people at St. Charles Medical Center so we could get the filters directly to the medical center and avoid contamination by me or anybody else along the way. And so that was so cool because I don't even live in Corvallis, and yet Hendrix Heating donated rolls and rolls of the air filtration system needed to make these masks much more effective. So lots of people don't have sewing machines, but they can do other stuff to help out. Maybe make some of these jigs. A lot of people are making the binding tape tool, because making binding tape takes forever, or so it feels. And so it's really cool that people are making those to help out. They don't sew, but they can print 3D tools out, or tools from their 3D printing machine. A lot of other people have cut out fabric, or then also donating materials that they might have that they're not using. So and one more piece here. So I got that nice little stack going. There's a couple more that I'll probably fine tune and trim off extra little pieces of tape, but for now that does the job. And then here we have the moment of truth on this. So I'll need to add a little note saying where the opening goes, and I'll make the tool for doing that too in a minute. So we got the A, B, C, D, E, and F. And so there we go. So that came out nicely. Everything will work well. I just need to sew that, and then this tool's ready to go. So one of the other jigs templates that I made is for the very first step of that opening that we're supposed to use. Actually, since we're not going to have this at home, I will do it with my tape measure. So I went ahead and I made this 2 inches tall. Here, we'll go and utilize some of the features that this tool has. So there's our center. We are going to, they need a 3-inch opening, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3-inch opening. We're going to do 1.5 inch on each side. If you're using from 1 through 8, it would be at mark 2.5 and at 5.5, and go like that. And I'm going to use the rotary cutter to cut it out because it'll just get a little more precise. This is an old blade, so this is not one that I use on the fabric. And then I'm just going to eyeball it because this part is not actually a seam that would be sewn. It would just be a mark for later. And so then here we have our tool to mark. So when we have the fabric before we've sewn it, we would put it on the 8-inch wide and it's 9 inches long, mark this out so we can then do that first sewn edge that ends up with this piece with this opening. And so here is the opening for that one. And so there's how to make both this template and this jig, which saves a lot of time. And you can also do the math to make it fit for whatever pattern. So for me, I found that taking off an 1/8 inch from what the dimension should be is what worked best. So keep sewing, keep washing your hands, keep staying inside, and hopefully this thing will pass quickly and we won't have to keep staying home and socially distancing. So have a good day.